Looking for financial insights you can trust?
How do you protect yourself as an investor? What's the strategy?
I think it's really simple. I think you just want to be diversified in your portfolio.
The Payne family brings real-world experience to every conversation.
Well, I think that's the problem right now is, right, a lot of people that are close to retirement, they're taking so much risks. And if we do get a big sell-off, it could derail their retirement.
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This episode is brought to you by Nature's Bounty. Nature's Bounty believes your body is brilliant, naturally designed to thrive, inside and out. For those always looking for new ways to support your health from head to heels, Nature's Bounty has a range of over 400 vitamins and supplements born from 50 years of trust and care. Nature's Bounty. It's in your nature. Visit naturesbounty.com to learn more.
Good morning. This is Mike Stoller for the Stoller Real Estate Report. What's happening in the investment sales business in New York? What's happening with regard to nonprofits owning and selling property? I have the specialist on that. I have my friend Mike
Tortorici.
Okay, who is a founder and a principal at Ariel Property Advisors. Thanks for being here.
Great to be here, Michael. Thanks for having me.
So talk to me. We were talking that volume is up. It seems like the market's pretty good shape. Give me an overview of the market today.
Yeah, it looks like for the year, total investment sales for the city is going to be a little bit above $30 billion, which is about a 5-10% improvement year over year. We're feeling a lot of momentum right now going into next year. The first half was a little bit slow. Second half picked up, and there seems to be just a comfort level with people transacting heading into 2026.
Okay, with regard to that, you specialize in faith-based investments. Explain that type of topic.
Yeah, I've a lot of the groups that I work with these days are faith-based organizations that are looking to figure out ways to leverage their real estate to better pursue their missions. So, what do I mean by that? A good example is Gary Barnett. I wasn't involved with this transaction, but Gary Barnett just purchased air rights from a Midtown church for about $36 million, air rights that I believe were unlocked from the City of Yes program. So now that religious facility has the ability to take that, support their building, support their other programs, and put their air rights to work in ways that they previously weren't able to do.
Which I'm going to ask you to explain that, but explain what the City of Yes program is.
Sure. So the City of Yes is the biggest rewrite of the zoning code in New York City in, I think it's 60 or 70 or something along those lines. And a part of that's really helped faith-based nonprofits in three ways. One, it opened up air rights sales. So previously, if you were a landmarked building, you had the ability to sell your air to your adjacent neighbors, or maybe you could go across the street, but you'd have to go through a very lengthy and cumbersome approval process with the city. It was so cumbersome that only a dozen or 2 dozen air rights sales from landmarks occurred as long as that was available. What City of Yes did is it expanded the way that it opened up the market for where these air rights can go. So instead of just going across the street or to your adjacent neighbor, you can basically go all around a particular block to other potential receiving sites.
How far? Is it one block or is it
one block that kind of faces your property? So if, let's say, I'm on the corner of Fifth Avenue and 55th Street, I can go across the street. I can go catty corner both ways. I can go one avenue west to the block that faces the block that I'm on, and it really opened up a wide array.
Much more flexibility in the larger.
More flexibility. I mean, if I had my druthers, it would be even more flexible. It would be the ability to transfer within a particular community district, just like they did with inclusionary housing, because the challenges that I see over and over again with these properties is they're very expensive. Landmark buildings are very expensive to maintain. You're placing a huge burden on these organizations that give so much back to the city, and we should give them the resources that they need through their air to support that mission of preserving properties, but also letting them thrive with these resources. So the more we can do as a city to support that, I think it's a win-win across the board. It's a win-win for the nonprofit. It's a win-win for our housing market, which desperately needs housing. This was a good start, but my hope is that it's the first step.
Okay, with regard to that, let's talk a little bit about 655 Madison Avenue, which was Gary Barnett's acquisition of the office building and demolition of that, and getting City of Yes, and also buying additional air rights around the neighborhood.
Yeah. So he bought those air rights for $285 a buildable square foot. What's interesting about this air rights transaction is we're in the midst of a whole new market being created for air rights. These are things that weren't previously able to be done. Development site sales up until recently have been somewhat slow, so the market is kind of readjusting. It's reestablishing prices both on a base standard as of right level and on an air rights level. If you look at Manhattan development sites since COVID, they've pretty much bounced around the $400 per buildable square foot level. There have been some outliers where you'd see $700-800 a buildable square foot, but it's been pretty sticky around that $400 to $425 a square foot level. We started to see improvement last year. In the middle of this year, the price per buildable came in at about $488 a buildable square foot, so a nice jump from last year, but still well below where they were pre-COVID, which was upwards of $600, $650 per square foot.
With regard to transactions, can you talk about some of the transactions that you've recently seen?
Sure. I mean, as you mentioned, I'm working with a lot of faith-based organizations. They're dealing with, they're trying to approach their real estate. Each one tries to approach it a different way. Each one faces its own challenges. So there was a site that we sold in Park Slope. It was a rundown church 30, 40, 50 years ago. There was a big need for these for their services in Park Slope. Today, the community isn't using it as much. So the church packed up. They sold their property for about $500 a buildable square foot, and they deployed those resources in an area of the North Bronx that is more fulfilling of the needs of the community and what they're looking to serve. Another example that we recently had was a property in the Bronx. I see this all the time where it's a congregation of about 60, 70 people that fits inside a meeting hall, a former theater, that's about 20,000 square feet, way much more than they need. They sold that for about $110 a square foot, which they then used to downsize, go into a warehouse nearby, and just really streamline kind of their operation. Another thing that we're seeing is sales with condo buildbacks. So we're working on one right now in Ditmas Park, a 44,000 buildable square foot site, and the church is looking to basically monetize that, but then have a condo built back for them that's about 5,000 square feet. And then on top of that, we also have ground leases are something that's very popular when it's doable. You need a certain amount of scale to do a ground lease. I'd say at least 50, 60,000 square feet to get an audience that makes it worth the time and the cost and the effort that it does to do a ground lease. But it's something that's very popular, and we're doing one right now also in the Bronx for a landmarked church that has a huge campus next to it. They'll be ground leasing the property to an affordable housing developer. They'll be getting money up front, and then a to restore their church, and then a residual cash flow for 99 years that will help them expand programming and improve their presence in the Bronx. And
what's happening up in Harlem?
Harlem has been so Upper Manhattan and Manhattan in general. I mentioned before how Manhattan development sites have kind of lagged since COVID, and the same's been up in Harlem. For whatever reason, price per buildable square foot is still down there. It's recovered in Brooklyn. It's recovered in Queens. It's certainly recovered in the Bronx. Some builders say it's just easier to build in those areas. There's more room for them to get their crews in and out, get supplies in and out. It's easier to manage construction costs. So I think Upper Manhattan, I think right now is a great place to invest. I think that the values there are, I think it's significantly undervalued compared to its potential. I think the same in certain cases for Manhattan as well. It's also been, hit hard by the 2019 rent laws. A lot of the rent-stabilized buildings that are there, that either sold in the last cycle or were refinanced in the last cycle, their values are down, depending on the particular situation of the building, 25 to 50%. There'll be it's something that's just working its way through the system, through the financial system, for rent-stabilized buildings. So the area's got a ton of potential. Market-wise, it's had a challenging couple of years.
What about churches and synagogues in Brooklyn and Queens?
So there's so many, and it's...
and they have shrinking population.
Shrinking. They're all dealing with... They're dealing with the same issues over and over again. A great example that is in the press a lot is the church on the Upper West Side that's been fighting landmarks for a very long time.
Oh, yeah.
That's the one that everyone knows about, where the congregation is saying we have only so many limited resources to restore this building, and to then maintain it once it is restored. Let us sell it and have a community facility buyback for us so that we can continue our programming and have the resources, have the endowment to really provide effective programming. And there's a lot of resistance to that. That is taking place on a massive scale with religious organizations, large and small, throughout Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx. And,
this is the same problem with private clubs who are landmarked. They need to sell and increase their value. But before the City of Yes, they weren't able to do it as often.
There's a systemic problem where you have all these buildings that are 100-plus years old, and all of the owners of them are worried about, their resources are dwindled for whatever reasons that are there. And, they worry every winter that a pipe burst or something else is going to cause a financial catastrophe for them and have, detrimental effects on their ability to serve their community. So, we're fielding a lot of interest from different organizations that are trying to be strategic, trying to be responsible with their resources, and we try to give them the advice and the different angles that they could pursue, so they can continue being thriving organizations where they work. Sometimes it's the big bad developers are up against the church. Actually, we're trying to create
a working relationship, right,
that everyone can benefit. One of the organizations I'm a part of that does great work in the space is a group called Bricks and Mortals. It brings together all different types of professions from around the real estate, whether it's brokerage, whether it's insurance, which is another thing that these organizations are dealing with, management, attorneys, zoning consultants, all this stuff, and it connects those professionals with the religious organizations around the city so that they have the know-how and the knowledge to use their assets the right way, so they can leverage their assets the right way.
And it sounds like you're the person who they should leverage their assets with.
That'd be great, but my advice is always interview multiple brokers. You'll learn something every time, and use that. But I'm happy to work with them. But otherwise,
there are a great number of good brokers around, and I'm very happy to have you and your partners on the show during the focus of the year. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you.
Looking for financial insights you can trust?
How do you protect yourself as an investor? What's the strategy?
I think it's really simple. I think you just want to be diversified in your portfolio.
The Payne family brings real-world experience to every conversation.
Well, I think that's the problem right now, is a lot of people that are close to retirement, they're taking so much risks. And if we do get a big sell-off, it could derail their retirement.
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.